I'm doing a quick video today about the Uno Synth and how I'm using it with my iPad. It could just as easily be a laptop or desktop computer, but I usually do the control mapping in the iPad, and that's why I have that up. One nice thing about the Uno Synth, it does have the programmer app. I think I actually have to have the USB plugged into the same device for this to work. But one thing you can do, you have more controls in the programmer than are on the actual device. So what you can do is you take your basic patch, then you can go on here and tweak things, and then you can't. So I don't have the actual license to run the software to do all the save functions on the app. The app has a save function, but it doesn't work on mine. So what I do is I tweak the settings, and then I go onto the device, and you click the preset, and then save to the number, and then that's how you save it. So if I wanted to make this, patch 66, hold down the preset. Then when the light's flashing, then you can change the number. To whatever you want. Doesn't matter. I'll just do 46. Hit the button again. Now it's saving it. Now I just saved 21 over to 46. I copied it over. I don't use that many different sounds, patches. Actually, I get a lot of different sounds, but I use the same, 6 or 8 patches all the time. I have a basic saw. I have a pulse lead or square. I have a octave kind of lead. I have some more resonant sounds. I could definitely do more patches with this, but there's certain ones that I kind of use all the time. And then the way I set it up with the effects, which is actually in my rack here. Try to zoom it in a little bit. So in my rack, you can toggle the overdrive on and off, so each patch can become like 2 different sounds. And I really like the reverb that's in my rack. That's that plateau reverb. It sounds really good. You can get a nice long reverb with that. Sorry, with the sounds, the mechanical sounds of the tripod. It's just easier to shoot this with a phone, so you can see what's going on with the connections in that too. And actually, I'm going to start with that. So what I have, let's zoom back out. So I have the iPad, or the Uno Synth, and I have the USB is the power. That's actually going to a hub that's connected to the laptop up here. So I don't have the USB going to the iPad at all. Then the audio signal. And I have one of these filters on it to remove ground loop noise. It's this thing. The audio signal goes in to the interface that's up here. And that's the audio interface I used with the iPad. So I got the mono input, and then that goes into my rack, which is like a multi-effects patch. That has a little compression, it has overdrive, it has delay, and it has reverb. I don't have a chorus in there. That's the combination that works really nice with the Uno Synth for me, so that's what I'm using. Now, one thing about the Uno Synth, you can get a little bit of noise leakage when the internal filter is just barely open. So what I did was I put a level control, which breath is opening and closing it, and what that does is that shuts it down completely, depending on how much breath you're sending, which allows you to kind of filter out the little bit of like oscillator leakage that comes through the filter when the Uno Synth filter is barely open. And then, you can see the notes So the MIDI goes from my WX7 here. Well, you can't see it, but I have this tangled mess. This is the MIDI out from my WX7. That goes into a splitter that's right here, and that splits it into 3 signals. One goes to the laptop, one goes to the iPad, and then one goes to this other USB interface, or the MIDI interface that's not plugged in, but that's not really important. So I'm sending the MIDI both to the laptop and the iPad at the same time with the MIDI through box. And then you can see the notes when you play the synth. So the Uno Synth, you have to map breath control to specific parameters, and I do that, and I'm going to zoom in so you can see what's going on MIDI flow, because you don't really need to see too much what's happening on the Uno Synth control panel. So let me zoom in so you can see what's going on in here, because this is the good stuff. So this is one I use a lot. This is sending breath control to the filter frequency and resonance. And here's where the mapping is. So you can see control 2 is going to 20, and then I have it move this over a little bit. There we go. Make sure you can see it. So I have it going from, it sends 0 to 127, and then I have it scaled to go from 11 to 91. So I don't open the filter all the way. That's that one. Now if we go back, and this is for the filter resonance, and I decided to use a curve on this. So it starts, like a third of the way open, and then breath can open the resonance, or most of the way, but not all the way. And that gets this sound. So as you lean into it, it growls a little bit. Kind of a mogy kind of sound, which I like. But then I also have a patch that's just the filter frequency only. And it's probably basically the same response curve that I had on the other one. And then that has whatever resonance level is mapped in the actual instrument. Sorry, that's crooked there. Sorry for the bumps. There we go. So, what you can do, if you want to play it without the... Is this going to focus for me? Come on. There we go. What you can do, if you're going to play it without sending breath to the resonance, is you can just go in and manually, so I click the second one, which is the filter controls, and then there's the frequency, there's the resonance, etc. I can't remember which one's which. Oh, resonance is the second one. So now you can see the display shows the resonance level. So it's fun with this. If you're playing it with just the filter frequency with breath control, is you can set it to the exact amount. Now I actually kind of like the other patch a little bit more for the MIDI control, because using the breath control to sweep the resonance, I can get a little bit more of a variety of timbre just using breath without manually adjusting the the level on the instrument. But sometimes you want it to just be, like if you were doing like a funk solo or something, maybe you want it. That's just go through little computer speakers up there, so there's not really any low frequency. But so that's how that works. But again, the MIDI Flow app is what I'm using. I didn't explain that. The MIDI Flow app is what I'm using to do the control mapping. So that's what you're seeing here, where you can see, you know, breath for the filter frequency, because it's CC21 is mapped or scaled from 8 to 94. But on the one where I did the resonance, I scaled it a little different. And it took me a while to kind of fine-tune these settings. But I like this because once you get it set up, then you have it all figured out. So on this one, I opened it a little more at the beginning, and then it stops at 94, which is pretty close to the same amount. So I'll leave it on that. And actually, the control patch, might as well call it that does not sweep the resonance probably works better with the patch that I use. That's the pulse sound, or the square. So here's the square one. Now I still have it on the synth over here, where I can adjust the filter. So another thing I like about the Uno Synth, when you go in the upper register, there's not so much aliasing, so you get a pretty good pure sound. So where was I going to go with this? So let's leave that where it is. I'm going to go back. So in my rack, so this was the delay and reverb, no overdrive. And I'm going to show where you can see the breath opening and closing the input level. That's the only thing that breath is doing in this patch. Now I could unmap that and manually do it, so you can hear the oscillator leakage. I'll do that in a minute with the other sound. It's more noticeable on the saw. On the pulse you don't really hear it that much. Then with the overdrive, the overdrive doesn't change the pulse sound as much because it's already kind of a square, but this one, and actually the input level makes a big difference on that particular module, how much breakup you're getting when it hits the drive. Like, I don't have a lot of gain on that. It's a little touchy. I actually think it gets a little better breakup when you put more resonance through it on the synth. So all these things interact so much. And the other nice thing I like, so I don't mess with the delay too much unless I'm just changing the time for a different tempo. But I love, I'm going to zoom this in, this, okay, now I'm too much over here. The reverb module, because you can change the decay. make it almost like a drone. And this is the sound, the kind of sound anyway. I have different ways that I achieve this with different instruments, but I use this all the time on streams. It's really good for solo performances because you can stop and take a breath and it continues, so you don't have like dead air. It would sound better with the full frequency range, but that's what's going on with all that. So the other thing I will do is not use my rack at all, but oops, wrong way, back here. I will use the audio unit mixer, AUM, for, got a lot of junk in here, the effects patch. I think this is the basic one. I have one that has the my rack patch in there too. So what's going on with this? Let's see, I don't even remember. So the audio comes in here and then it jumps over to a bus. Okay, I have a little bit of compression. So again, what's happening, we have the sound of the Uno Synth goes into the interface, and then AUM has a multi-effects patch, which has the audio input, then it has the light compression, not a lot, just to smooth that out a little bit. And I put a second filter on here, which you don't necessarily need. That's breath is probably opening and closing that. And then I have crush station, chorus, delay, and another space reverb, eventide black hole, I'm sure, is the last one there. No, it's AUFX space, Kymatica. I like that one too. Yeah, I didn't mean to do that. It's okay though. On the iPad, my favorite reverbs are probably that plateau reverb, and my rack is probably my most favorite. AUFX space, if I want to do a real long reverb tail, and eventide black hole. Those are the three I use all the time. This is a nice delay. It has ping pong. It has some other effects that I don't really use. Like you can do filtering of the delay. And what does this sound like? It's going to sound kind of similar to the other one. I mean, I have similar taste with effects for all these things, so they don't sound that different. You wouldn't expect them to. Let's see. So this doesn't have the second filter. I'm not doing anything with breath, with amplitude. So let's see if we can hear that. The oscillator leakage I was talking about. You don't really hear it that much through a speaker, and that's one of the things. I play a lot through headphones. And through headphones, I can always hear it, and it denoys the heck out of me. So that's why I have this F16 on here. Yeah, it's just a one-pole filter, so just a little bit to kind of open and close it. But let me make sure I get the volume right. But when you add a second filter, it does change the timbre, and ultimately the Uno Synth filter, it has a really good quality and a really good bite to it. So it's better if you don't put a second filter on it, and that's one of the reasons that I use MyRack more now as the multi-effect solution with Uno Synth rather than passing it through, you know, a second filter to do that kind of a thing, because it's really better to just hear the Uno Synth filter itself. And then especially, I'm still only sending the breath to the filter frequency right now in the Uno Synth, and then I'm manually adjusting the resonance. So you can't see it, but I still have that up here, so you can. Yeah, that's actually kind of a nice way to play it. So let's get some crush station going. So, and one thing that sounds really cool, I have another patch, and I'll show because I'm not running out of space on my phone yet. So here's crush station added. Not getting a lot of breakup. I don't know what the level. So I don't have a lot of grit. It's one of the controls, grit. But that's pretty similar to the sound that I had in MyRack. But the other patch that I like, I had a lot of fun with this one when I set it up, is I took the MyRack patch that I was using before, where you can have the long reverb tail hanging out there to get that reverb cloud, and then I put that before the crush station, so then you get this the effect where the reverb cloud is going through the breakup. So let's see, and then I have a chorus on this one too. So the cloud that hangs out there is going through the crush station. And then I have the overdrive before crush station, so it's got like two different distortion / overdrive sounds going at once. so that's how I use those together. Not much left to say. I didn't do a good job of really explaining what you can do with the Uno app, but there's a number of other controls in this thing. In terms of kind of default, I haven't really, once I got my like 10 patches I use all the time, I haven't gone into here that much. But here's where the settings are. Sorry for the noise. Where you can see like the MIDI interface mode. I think that's through the USB. I'm not sure. Oh, the MIDI soft through. So I don't have the MIDI soft through on. Oh. Oh, and you have the different MIDI inputs you can use and the MIDI outputs. And it actually connects to the different things in the iPad. So it recognizes, oh, you could send the MIDI out to the SWAM or the whatever, which is nice because what you can do is also use this as a MIDI controller with the iPad, which I don't really do a lot of, but it does have a hold button on the keyboard. You can't even see it. I'm tapping on the instrument and then I'm showing the app. I'm probably messing myself up with this app. I'm going to turn it off. It's okay though. I can always go back and fix settings later. So you do have the ability to use. There is a MIDI in and a MIDI out on the device. You can use it as a MIDI controller, which is kind of nice for doing drones and stuff. So here's the hold button. So there, now we're holding the note D, E, F, G. So if I was sending MIDI to the iPad or to my laptop, I can use this to hold drone pitches. Kind of like how you would do it with the Launchpad or something like that. But it's so small, and for the size of this, it's just fantastic. I used to have a craft synth, and to me, really the Uno Synth is kind of everything that I wished the craft synth would be. And I'm glad I got rid of the craft synth because in the upper register, I didn't like the timbre of it that much. Like it would kind of lose some of its power, and the filter didn't sound that great. If you really wanted to make the craft synth growl, what you would do is you would send it through like a ladder filter, like in my rack, you would just set up like a patch with a ladder filter, or you could send it through the Moog Filtertron app. And at that point, if you're playing it through a second filter, why not just get an instrument that has a better sounding filter? And that's what I ended up doing with this. It does have a built-in delay. I don't really ever use it. But you can play this through an effects pedal that works good. I have the Boss ME50. You could put it through a mixer that has separate effects too. Or not separate effects, but you could put it through a mixer that has built-in effects, and it would sound good. That's probably a video I need to do at some point, but I'll be honest and say I rarely use that mixer. Most of the time I kind of chain things together with the audio interfaces that you saw up there, and then that's how I operate. So like in this case, so here's the iPad. I would send the iPad output into another device, and then this is the laptop that's my main host now, and then I send this into my second laptop, which I use for sometimes for video recording and streaming, and then that also is the one that goes to the stereo system I have way up top that you can't see, but I actually have a stereo receiver up there, way up there. And I'm not playing through that right now. So we just have these little computer speakers that are stuck up here. And that's where the sound is coming from for this video. The synthesizers. It's just they don't have the low frequency. If I was running it through the receiver up there, then you would get more of the bass. But it's fine for this, just so you can hear what I'm doing. Because the main thing I'm doing is showing the different kind of lead sounds that I use the Uno Synth for and the effects, and that works plenty good with the small speakers. So I'm going to stop talking now. I'm not going to edit this, so I'll throw this up on YouTube, and then people can actually see, oh, this is how I use the Uno Synth, how I set up the breath control, how I fine-tune it with the MIDI control routing and scaling, and get the different sounds. And I think it's a really good sound. I mean, do I think it sounds better than my favorite, synth plugins that I run on desktop? I mean, do I think it sounds better? Probably not. Do I think it sounds basically as good? Yeah, I think it does. I think with most instruments, the effects play a big role. So if we were going to talk about apps that I use a lot, like the Odyssey desktop app, or Oddity 3 from GeForce, or the Cherry Audio stuff like Quadra, those all have really good effects. They have really good basic sound. I mean, I think the Uno Synth fits right in with those. I layer it with those all the time. The Uno Synth can really cut through, though, and I think that's a nice quality. Plus, when you're layering there's an advantage to having the controls right on the unit for the resonance, for the volume. If you do the filter frequency or filter type, that's actually the filter type: high pass, low pass, band pass. So you could be doing a solo and have it on low pass and switch it over to band pass and get a completely different sound. I mean, it's so easy. So here's the frequency. This was the resonance. This is the filter type. So it's a multi-mode filter. I mean, everything is all right there. It's quite convenient. And especially with layering, you got the volume control. So many times when you're layering stuff, you need to just adjust that volume just a tiny bit to get the balance the way you want it. And if you're messing around with the mouse while you're trying to play, I mean, I'm pretty good with that, or the touchpad on the laptop. I actually use the touchpad all the time. So on my setup, I use this. And it's just easier, though, to grab a knob and tweak a knob. And I do have controllers that have programmable knobs, but really I don't use them that much. I've thought about using this as a controller where I map these knobs to plugins on the desktop, but it's just easier to program the sounds where Brett does the heavy lifting, and then you don't have to mess with the knobs that much. And then, if I do want to make dynamic changes while I'm doing, soloing or something, and mess around with the resonance, mess around with the volume level, whatever, then I can just do it on the Uno Synth. Because by and large, I have certain sounds that I like to use a lot for soloing, and it's pretty typical old school lead sounds that you've heard a million times, which is like a saw lead, maybe with a little bit of resonance. It's more like a horn sound. With a lot of resonance, that's more like that biting kind of sound that I do, where you can get the filter to growl a little bit. I do like a square lead that sounds like things you've heard on records with all the mini Moog stuff. I do like an octave lead that can sound a little bit like some of the ARP leads, like you hear on like a weather report thing or something like that. I mean, there's like 5 or 6 sounds I use all the time, and even on the different synth plugins, it's like the ones that are like virtual analog that have the conventional waveforms. I have a lot of the same type of sounds programmed. You know what I mean? I have the same patches. Quadra has the same lead sounds that I would use on the Uno Synth. That has the same lead sounds, sort of, that I use on PS20, although I do have some different timbres on PS20 that I like. That's the MS-20 emulation that Cherry Audio did. For the Miniverse, which is the Cherry Audio Mini Moog one, I actually use the same couple sounds all the time. I don't even have that many patches on that, because I usually go to that and I just have like a certain sound that I'm going for, and it is kind of similar to what I was doing with the saw lead on the Uno Synth. It's just a little different quality. Maybe it's a little smoother, I think, the way that that particular filter is, and that's one of the nice things too, is these instruments have, you know, different filters, and that's really the main difference from instrument to instrument for me. You know, the Uno Synth, I think, is a 2-pole low-pass filter, and then something like the Miniverse is a 4-pole low-pass. So you get just a different tone quality because of that. There's some things where you can switch between it, and that's always nice too. I have some things in my rack where you can do that, where you can switch the filter type between 2-pass, 2-pole, 4-pole. You know, like that F16 filter works nice for that. But as much as I love that F16 filter to run any synth through it, does it sound as good as the Uno Synth filter? No, it doesn't. It just doesn't have the mojo. There's something about the filter in the Uno Synth that it really can have a good cutting quality and really growl when you bump up the resonance without feeding back too much. It's got a really musical, usable filter. So I've talked way more than I was going to at the end of this. But you know, maybe all this background will be useful for somebody who's messing around with one of these. So the thing about Uno Synth, and we could be talking about anything. I wish I would have said this at the beginning of the video. I really don't care a lot for, how do I want to say this? Personally, I'm not going to do reviews of an instrument. I don't like doing reviews myself. I would rather just talk about, well, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, here's how I use it, this is what's cool. You can do this, you can do that, it layers with this, it layers with that. That's the approach that I would rather take. So, you know, I'm never going to do like a review of Uno Synth. But would I do a comparison video where I go, okay, well, here's Uno Synth, and then here's, you know, Cherry Audio's free Surrealistic MG1 Moog app. Yeah, that would be a fun video because you kind of do it head-to-head. But I'm not really going to like say, oh, well, this one gets a 9 and that one gets a 10, because they're just different sounds. And I mean, I'm going to want to use both of them. I mean, you know, there's all these this versus that videos that people do, and I think those are fun. I watch a lot of those. But for me, it's a lot more about this and that, because, you know, there's a certain sound that one instrument's going to get that you're not going to get from the other ones. And I'm a strong believer in that. It's like when I play saxophone all the time. I would say each mouthpiece kind of had its own sound, right? And you want to try to just work with what it gives you rather than trying to force your tone on it. You're going to sound like yourself anyway. And that's how I think, you know, to me, synthesizers work. Like, each instrument has its own qualities, and you're best working with what it gives you rather than trying to go, oh, I hear the sound in my head, I want it to be exactly whatever, and then, you know, try to will it to happen. I mean, some people can do that, but I think a more practical approach for a lot of us is to work with the sound that it gives you and just find a musical way to use that. And so I would be more likely to just jump to a different instrument if I wasn't happy with the sound, rather than spending like 30 or 40 minutes trying to tweak one sound to get it exactly the way I want. It's easier to just change instruments. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching, and everybody have a great day, whatever you're doing.